Hello and welcome to another episode of the MomBoss Show. My name is Michelle Hon, and today I have with me my special guest, Aileen Yeo, right?
Yes,
Aileen Yeo?
that's right.
Hope I didn't get the surname wrong. And Aileen, why don't you start by telling our audience, what do you do?
Hi everyone, I'm Aileen and I'm in a real estate consultant in Singapore with PropNets for the last 15 years.
So you just told me before we started the interview, there are like 35,000 real estate agents in Singapore. How are you different and how do you help your clients win?
I would say there is a certain life phase, a cycle in every real estate agent's career. So at the 15th mark, typically when you start off, you are, exploring the industry. You're trying to grasp yourself and stable yourself and find clients. But at the 15th mark already, I would say it's more of trying to educate clients because you've seen enough, or rather myself, I've seen enough people, upgrading, right sizing, and also revising their property portfolio for their retirement plans. So I think what was really rewarding is when clients come back to you after 3 years, telling you, say, thank you, Aileen, that's a best purchase. I've made a lot of money through that. And the only regret that they came back and tell me is, why didn't I buy a bigger house back then? Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's very, very rewarding. And also to see the smiles on family after they moved in to their home and say, thank you for making me consider this place when it wasn't even part of our consideration.
Right. Yeah. So it's very often more than, a transaction for them, right? It's helping them finding a home and also making a better investment for the long term for themselves as well.
That's right.
I mean, speaking of, you say putting a smile on your client's face, what is that one proudest moment that you can remember in your 15 years of career?
I think every story has its really beautiful memory. What really was the most recent one was a family who came back from the States. And they were trying to grapple, or rather they have been trying to look around for a while on their own, but only when a friend of mine, who is also their cousin, recommended me to them. And then when I went in, I started to not to immediately sell them. I sat down with them and understood where did they come from. So they came from the States with a really beautiful barn. And then they said that, trying to reframe their mind and going back into Singapore homes is quite a bit of a challenge.
Yep.
So I had to understand what were their needs, who was in their family, to decide finally after, I remember, about 6 months search. And they finally decided on something to call their own home. And I follow up with them, after their renovation, and I say, how's everything? And they said they loved it. So I think that was really, really rewarding.
Especially coming from, like you say, right, from overseas where you can have such a big place and setting the expectations. So I'm just curious, in that 6 months, how many places did you bring them to see?
In fact, we went all over the island because it's very common for first-time home buyers in Singapore that they're not sure where are they going. They have young kids, but again, they have not settled down on which school to send the kids to. So that's typically the problem. So I would take them to different places to explore and ask them, is this the estate that you envision your family to be in? Yeah. And then I would say on and off, I would say at least 30 homes. Yeah.
Wow.
30 different houses.
Okay. So you would say that if people who are already in Singapore would need to start with which estate first? That's sort of like your first kind of like narrowing system?
Yes. I would usually ask, where did you grow up in? Where do you live in? So I find out a lot more in detail rather than telling them that, these are the things I have. These are the homes that I have on my portfolio.
Correct.
You need to consider them. It doesn't work that way. It has to be customized. It has to be tailored accordingly to the different families.
Wow. So that brought me to what do you think is that common misconception clients have about buying a property?
A lot of times people go with the flow. And in recent times, because of a lot of new launches, they go where the people go. It's kind of like a FOMO feeling. like fear of missing out. Why is there so many people swarming to the show flat? But the thing is that what works for one person may not work for you. So earlier this morning, I was just sharing with a group of friends and I told them that, what's good for the goose may not be good for the gander. So it works very differently. I need to know what your family needs. Is it the size, the location? What's your budget? And not only just at the point of purchase, but it also, I will look beyond that and say, okay, after you buy this home, potentially when are you looking to sell? So we need to have not just the entry plan, we need to have the exit plan as well. So I have to look in that whole area.
Right. Yeah. Yes. That's very important. I think a lot of people just kind of like, for now, it feels good. Just buy first. And then who knows, this is going to be a Pharrell home or my second home. So it's good to think about what's the next steps with you. So typically, what type of clients do you work with? Like, are they more owner-occupiers or investors?
I would say a good amount of homeowners who are looking to upgrade. And sometimes they are so comfortable and I will go back and reconnect with them and challenge them and say, hey, because I've been in this line for 15 years, right? So usually after 5 years, when it's about the right time, I will look through how has their property grown in terms of value. And I'll go back to them and say, hey, your property has appreciated. I think it's time to challenge you to move your family out and grow a little bit bigger so that in the near future, when you retire at 65 or 70, you have a bigger property portfolio that you can reap your harvest. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's really important. Yeah. I mean, you have been in the industry for 15 years, right? So for maybe some of our mom bosses who are thinking of going into this industry, what's that one thing that you think they should consider before coming in?
Wow. I would say that a lot of people come in because they think it's easy money. Yeah. And they have seen a lot of property agents saying that, I've closed this deal today. I've closed that deal. I've got this award. But what they don't see is what goes behind the scene. From the time when you join to finding customers and then how do you reconnect with them? How do you maintain that relationship? Instead of being the typical transactional agent, what do you need to be able to sustain? Right. So I think a lot of moms want to join the industry, which is good because it gives them a lot of flexibility of time. But yet at the same time, when our clients are free, it's also the time when we should be working.
Yes.
Yeah. So our weekends are burned, our nights are burned, but how do you navigate that within your home? Yeah. So I think it's more of like your own time, own target, your own goal.
Yeah. So like, as you mentioned, there's a lot of not just transactional work, not the viewings and all of that. There's a lot of background work, a lot of studying on your own, right? Yes. Like you said, like following up on these clients and see how their property have grown and things like that. So personally, I would like to ask about yourself. Like, how do you find yourself sort of like, keeping abreast in the industry and still being competitive?
I see. That's a very good question. So for ourselves, we have to always be updated with the news, the policies in Singapore. I think that's the most basic. Housing policies, the economy, what's happening to the world, how does Fed rates affect Singapore's interest rates. On top of that, we ourselves have been walking the talk. Yeah, so if I'm in the property line, I also have to make myself a little bit uncomfortable to be always growing. So if you ask me, will I be staying in the same place as I am today 5 years later? It may be a no.
Okay.
Yeah, because I have to be doing it to tell my clients that, I have been through what you are going to go through. So be assured.
Right, walking the talk. And also, of course, I think being in the industry, one of the perks, can I say, is also getting to know like the good deals and invest in the right property.
Well, yes and no. I always like to joke. A lot of clients ask me, Aileen, do you know of any fire sale? Yeah. So I will tell them that if I know, I will be the one to buy it first.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now, bringing it back to MomBoss Academy, you enroll in demand after, being in your industry for this many years and clearly an expert at it already and doing really well. What made you join the program?
That's a very interesting question. What's funny is that sometimes the longer you are in your own field, the less you know about yourself. So when I entered, or I think it got to a point whereby I have been asked constantly, what is my unique selling point? And I sat down and asked, out of 13,000 agents within PropNets, out of 30 over 1,000 agents within Singapore, what sets me apart from the rest of people? So I was honestly not just looking for clarity in my own business. I was looking for a business mentor. Yeah, I was searching around. I was trying to find someone that I could align with. And I found it interesting that, you call yourself a mom boss because it resonates with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I myself am a mother of two and I'm running my own business and I needed a guidance. What the bosses within the real estate industry can provide me is very relevant knowledge in the industry, but not how I run my business or not the specific kind of clarity I need in my own line of work.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, good to know. So, I mean, you're still actually really new in the program, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, so far, what was the one thing that you think that you've already taken away with you?
I think having that time, setting aside that time to really ask myself what kind of clarity I want in my own business, such that when I go out, I can tell people specifically how am I different from the rest of the other property agents or consultants. So that was very important because without clarity, I wouldn't be able to step out and differentiate myself. I'll be self-doubting. I'll be self-doubting myself.
And then putting it across this day and age online, right?
Yes.
All multiple online profiles as well, so that other people could see that differentiation.
Yeah, that's right.
So what are some of the challenges that you faced in your 15 years of career and how did you overcome it?
I would say work on its own is a similar challenge that other property agents or other property consultants have. But what is a lot more tougher as a mom, as a wife, and as a real estate consultant is the fact that we have to balance everything. Yeah. So how do I balance between working hard, being a better version of myself this year, and then balancing with my children, growing kids, and their studies? So I think a lot of mothers, when they go out to work and they come home, there's that moment before you step into the house, how you put behind all the bad emotions, the negative thoughts that you have experienced at work, and then you enter home with a different and fresh, refreshed feel when you see the children.
So you don't want to bring the bad into, the frustration, and then it affects you and the screaming and things like that.
That's right.
So you faced that challenge before.
All the time. Okay. So it's easier said than, it's a lot easier.
We know that we're supposed to do that. Yeah. But then sometimes we're just like, I'm back.
So
what do I have to do now, right?
Yes. Okay. And for mothers who actually work on their own, like their mom bosses, right? Work doesn't stop, even when they enter home.
Yeah, especially if you have your own business.
Yes.
It's on your mind, at the back of your mind at least. Yeah.
That's right. So how do you deal with it when you have kids coming to you and all that?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of challenge and you have to tell yourself, okay, breathe. Okay, I got to deal with one thing at a time. And then they are not the problems that I should bring to. So I should help the children to solve their problems and then move on to my own. Yeah.
So, I mean, some days there's still some hard days. Do you have like one trick that you kind of like, okay, I've dealt with some really difficult clients right now, and I'm like at the door of my house before I step in, is there like a ritual to feel better again and put that behind?
It's more of all in the mind.
Oh, okay.
You just step in and imagine yourself stepping into a different realm.
Okay.
But to be honest, sometimes I do tell my eldest daughter the real struggles that I go through. So I would tell her and say, hey, baby, I'm having a bad day. I just got a really difficult client today. I hope you understand if I lose my temper. And she understands. Yeah. And she'll say, okay, I'm so sorry you felt that way. And she'll try to manage herself.
Right.
Yeah. Instead of, getting on my back, she understands and she'll tell the brother, hey, I think she's in a bad mood today. I kind of stay away.
Watch out.
Yeah.
But I mean, thank you for sharing that. It's really important sometimes to show our real self to our children rather than we trying to show them, well, this superwoman who's trying to do it all, who has no emotion, right? And that, hey, we have our bad days too. And hopefully when it's their time to, become a mom and all, they can also accept all kind of emotions and not say that if I ever feel bad or sad or frustrated, that's a bad thing. It's just part of being human.
That's
so
right.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you, Michelle. I think it's very important that you created an environment and a community for mothers who are also entrepreneurs and with children.
Yes,
so we all understand each other's struggles, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up with the one question that I will ask all of my mom bosses in this series is, what does success means to you? And do you feel that you are successful now?
I've always thought that success means walking into a supermarket and buying things without looking at a price tag. Yeah. But what I've learned in my whole journey is that success means that if my next generation is better than I am now, yeah, that's a true success. Because one day I was seated down with my dad, and for some strange reasons, Chinese dads usually don't put praise on their lips. Yeah, but he casually just made a mention and he said that, well, I think I'm pretty successful as a dad. And I said, how do you say so? He said, well, look at my children. They are better than me today.
Wow.
And that struck me. And I realized that as I look at myself and my children, why do I work so hard for, right? As mothers, we work hard so we can provide the best for our children in hope that they can be better than us.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing such a personal story. That's kind of give me goosebumps right now. Wow, that's really profound and touching in a way that, that your dad is opening up to you and feel that, it's time that, he feels proud of, and how you're doing. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
No problem. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you.